Hello, today we're going to start with basic pinch pot. Now I have a big thing of clay here. Usually buy clay in 25-pound bags. Now we cut the clay with a wire cutter. This can be dangerous for small children, so make sure somebody supervises them. Cut across, and then I'm going to cut down. So I just have a small brick. I put the rest back in and make sure it's nice and airtight. I'll use that later. Okay, now clay, when it is in this form, is called plastic. Now to do a pinch pot, we're going to take this clay and we are going to just smash it down real good, and we're going to form a spherical shape. So when it is done, it's going to resemble a ball. Now you'll notice I've taken off all of my jewelry and my watch. Clay is dirty. Now while this clay is completely safe, it does get into the crevices of just about anything and everything, and can actually mess up a project if it scrapes across it. So I always take everything off when I work with clay. All right, we have a nice spherical shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of get my hands a little wet. Not very wet because I do not want a big mess here. Now what I do is I take it in one palm, and I'm going to use my dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand. And I'm just going to gently press down in the middle. And as I press, I am slowly twisting the ball in my hand so that I have an indentation within it. And I just keep doing that. As I do it, my thumb is going down further into the sphere, and I'm squeezing with my dominant hand so it pinches the clay between my fingers. And as I go, I can go a little bit faster, making sure that the clay stays nice and moist. If you are working with clay that tends to be a little bit drier, you might want to reconstitute it with some water. Otherwise, it will start to crack, and it will be very frustrating for whoever is working with it. Let me just keep going. And this is the basic formation of a pinch pot. Now pinch pots can be turned into a multitude of projects from here. First, I'm going to get it nice and thin, because when you go to fire in the kiln, you do not want your project to be too thick. When it becomes thick, it tends to take a lot longer for it to dry. And if your project is put into the kiln and it's not completely dry, intense heat of 2000 degrees plus moisture is going to create steam. And steam will make your project explode into lots of pieces. So we try to avoid that at all costs. Okay. All right, we have the basic pinch pot here. Try to make sure that we keep all our walls even, which means when you are forming it, you need to try your darndest to keep your pressure consistent throughout your project. Yeah. Now we got to work with what we are going to, I just gently tap it on the table, and that will give it a nice flat surface on the bottom, so it's not going to roll or move around too much. Okay, from here you can add a handle to it. You can keep going and making it thinner as it creates height to it. you could take this as a base and you can add more clay and add coils to it and turn it into a taller base, which would be great for pencil holders and stuff. It is completely up to the artist here. Or you can make a whole bunch of these and have each one do something a little bit different. Okay. Now from here, I was going to turn these into little clay monsters. Dry my hands off some because now I need to get back into this bag and grab some more clay. Closing the bag up so we don't get much air in it, because the air will dry the clay out. Once it gets to a certain dryness, it's nearly impossible to work with. You have to reconstitute it. All right. Now for our clay monster. We have to decide what our monster or little critter wants to look like. Okay. Do we want the opening of our pinch pot to be its mouth? Do we want this to be the bottom and then the clay monster has its head up here? How do you want it formed? It's completely up to you. You can have this as the head comes up along the side as one of the walls. There are many, many ways you can do it. For this one, I think I'm going to have the opening of the pinch pot be part of the monster's mouth. Now, clay in its plastic form is pretty malleable, meaning it is very flexible and you can work with it a lot. All right, here I have bent it down some and I am going to start creating some different things to it before I get carried away. As you can see, this is pretty much just really liquidy clay. There's a lot of water and a little bit of clay to it mixed up. And I use an old junky paintbrush that came from one of those $1 watercolor sets. They're kind of, the bristles tend to be pretty hard to work with, which makes it really easy to put slip on. They're pretty firm bristles. Okay, now how do we want our little monster to look? Okay, I am going to start off with a couple of small pieces of clay. Now, I have lots and lots of pottery tools, but if you do not have a variety of pottery tools, most objects around the house can be used in a pinch. Okay, so I've taken just a small piece of clay, flattened it some, and turned it into a slightly rectangular piece. Next, I'm going to grab what we refer to as a needle tool. Now, these are very sharp. I use them in the classroom with students all the time, and I am very lucky the students realize this is a serious tool for serious artists, and I give them the safety spiel before they touch it. They also know that if they decide to use the special tools inappropriately, they lose their privileges. That is why it's always very important to have supervision when working with small children and very sharp objects. Okay. Now for this, I'm going to create some teeth with this. So I am just going to gently push this needle tool into, and then halfway through, I'm going to have it go all the way through. And these are going to end up being teeth for our little monster. Wooden rib, you can press up against stuff to flatten it, smooth it out, or form in different ways. Okay. Now the mouth, I'm just going to add the little teeth to. Now the place where I'm going to join the two pieces, which would be the roof here and this, it's going to be important that I score and slip them properly. So wherever the two pieces of clay meet, I'm to create some little hatch lines. And okay, now I take my slip and I'm going to paint a little bit within those crevices. The reason I do this is so that the slip goes into the crevices. As I gently but firmly push them down in, they bond. And what happens is clay shrinks. There's usually about a 10% shrinkage rate. So you have these crevices, and when you affix them together and they have slip in them, they shrink and they bond, and it makes it so that it's very difficult for those two pieces to pull apart. It's not impossible, especially if you don't do it properly, but it makes it more difficult. And I can always tell when a student has not scored and slipped their piece. They may think it looks like it is stuck to each other firmly, but when it dries, the clay shrinks, and when it goes through the kiln, it is heated to extreme elements. And those pieces of clay that looked like they were sticking together pull apart, and the parts to the projects fall off. So you must always properly score and slip. Okay, so now we have some teeth. You can see there's a little bit of slip that has leaked out. I'm just going to take a quick sponge that's wet, and I just go ahead and just smooth that extra slip off. Now the teeth here are still very much soft, and I can make adjustments to them, but they are affixed to the bottom of the roof. And I can still go in and I can smooth these together nice and neatly so that there is no joint showing. We want all the projects to look as clean and smooth as possible. So just getting my fingers. Your finger is going to be your most important tool in the entire process of working with pottery. Just get it a little bit wet, and you can't even tell hardly at all that there's a joint there. Okay, so the teeth are still here. I can go in with various tools, and I can clean up any sides that are not quite smooth enough for my liking. I can add little details to it. When it is in this plastic state, there are so many things you can continue working on. Okay, so we have teeth on the top, hanging down. Now, what would we like to do? All right, we have the need for eyes. Now, is your monster going to have one eye? Is it going to have two eyes? That is up to you. Okay, but it's important that your monster is amazing because it's part of you. Okay? When I'm working in a classroom with students, I stress that I will refuse to fire anything in the kiln that is over 1 inch thick, no matter how long it's sat on the shelf drying. If it's not smaller than 1 inch, it does not go into the kiln. So it's important for me, the teacher, to make sure that all of my sample pieces and projects fit the same diameters. Okay, now I am going to make a little eyeball and I'm going to put it up here. All right, I'm going to score and slip where this eye is going to go on the top of the piece. Okay. Where you guys decide to put your eyes, arms, legs, ears, monster, whatever, antenna is completely up to you. Okay, both sides are properly scored and hatched, scored and slipped. Adding the slip to it, very gently but firmly pressing down and in. You can take your paintbrush, clean it off from the water, and use that to clean up any excess slip as well. Okay. Now this could be a nose, but my plans are to make it an eye.